Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Superman and Lois, Season 2, Episode 6. One, I want to say thank you, everybody, for being a part of this review. If this is like your first time coming to this, or you've gone on and been through a lot of these, thank you. I really do appreciate it. And for what's kind of going on with the channel, this might be kind of like the big series, so I really appreciate anybody coming on and watching any of these reviews. So the one thing that I like kind of stuck out to me, and I'm kind of like thinking my brain noggin and all kinds of things. So there is this one point in this episode where I don't feel like it's going to be a huge amount of spoilers, so I feel I can say it anyways. We have it where we're kind of showcasing Bizarro before he is to make it to where he is currently. And so one thing that I can say here that kind of stuck out like a sore thumb to me is they kind of show this cat. And like this cat had these like kind of glowing eyes. And maybe it means absolutely nothing. Or maybe there is a possibility weirdly in the back of my mind that this cat is to possibly mean something. Because when you look at it, we have it where Superman's greatest weakness is usually magic. Where Bizarro is from, probably Superman's strength, his strongest thing to ally possibly with, could possibly be a magic user. And so immediately what kind of popped into my brain is that maybe in Bizarro's world, he is to tie himself to a character called Clarion. Klarion. A lot of people might know him from the possible later seasons of Young Justice. He's usually called like the Witch Boy, and like he has this kind of cat that he is to consistently stroke, or has as a sidekick or something like that. Could it be possible that something was to come along with Bizarro in his journeys to make it here, and that could quite possibly be Clarion or some other kind of thing? But that would be interesting if that coincidentally just plays out. I'm like, oh, that I guess I just luckily called that. Or let me know if you think that the whole cat thing is important or is non-important, because I'm kind of curious what people's thoughts are, because they can't just have a cat that's kind of just put into the frame of things and it has those technically glowing eyes, but that might just be a camera angle kind of effect. But I'm just curious what people's thoughts are. So in this episode, I would actually deem this episode to be a good episode. This episode was actually just kind of like, man, like this kind of feels like refreshing, like from all the kind of soapy stuff that we had to kind of focus so much on in the last episode. It feels like we're getting back to stories that are much more interesting and just a kind of a cluster of interesting things, as well as us needing to find out within this episode if Lana is going to go on and take Kyle back or possibly not. And they resolve that within this episode, so thank God it doesn't feel like there's this massive cliffhanger of Lana like taking Kyle back or not taking him back. And so like I felt good about that they resolved it in one episode. Very positive about that. So as if that really mattered to me anyways, but still, like, it's good that they, like, resolved this in all that one episode so we can kind of go on to the next step of what is to go on as far as story of the Cushing family. So we of course have our story go on, and it's kind of all over the place. Like there's not like one like main story here. I think the most story is to kind of rest on Jordan and Jonathan in this one, which I'm like, oh, okay, so we're going back. We're kind of falling back on like, okay, uh like back to the like season one form where it's like the Jordan and Jonathan show, which is to be like the main part of this episode. But there is some Superman stuff, and Lois is to also have some time with Lucy and her father in this episode. And it seems like most of this episode is to be like fun and just kind of interesting. Um, and so thoroughly enjoyed it, thoroughly was like, okay, like, so finally we're getting back to somewhere. I think the reason why there was so much focus on the Cushing family in the last episode was probably because they were thinking it's like, well, let's just show the Cushing story, because really nobody's probably going to realize that this show is back on, and so let's kind of give them another week, and then we'll have a really good episode here to have people really want to come back to this episode. Like, oh, what's going on, huh? Ooh, hey, hmm. So with that said, let's go on, and Bizarro has a really good showcasing in this episode. Uh, we have like Superman and Anderson kind of, we really get down to the nitty gritty of like these characters have kind of been butting heads for far too long. Anderson is starting to uh, realize that his job is at risk, so he has to go and make a move right now. And so like there's a lot of just jam-packed fun that's happening in this episode, and it's to give us kind of this ending episode where it's like, like, I wonder where we're gonna go into next week, instead of having us not really give a like we've done before, to where it's like we actually care now. We're like, great, let's see what happens, let's see the roll the dice of this, which I can kind of figure out where it's going possibly fairly easily, because we still have, excuse me, we still have a Superman that is out there somewhere, so might as well go on and need to do a prison break kind of thing. But anyways, let's go into it. I've already halted far enough. Let's just go into spoilers about this one. Let me know how you felt about this episode, whether you enjoyed it, whether you have gone on and just kind of been back and forth about the season. I've really just been like spiraling down, but it feels like we might have some kind of incline going here, to kind of give us some interesting stories from all of this stuff that we've kind of accumulated over time. So let's go into that double five. Let's go into this thing called this spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time we get to spoil this episode. So really, I don't think I'm going to completely focus on the way of which that the episode is to all trickle down. Like, I'm just going to go on and just compile a bunch of stuff together. So if people don't like it that way, I'm sorry, but that's the way things are. So in the very beginning of this episode, we of course have the life of Bizarro, where we are to kind of showcase where Bizarro was before he got to what is to be Superman's Earth. So Bizarro, of course, is to be living on this mirrored world that, of course, is to have this red sun and not the yellowed sun. And so we have Bizarro that is to have this kind of weird cat that he, of course, is at his house with. It seems that Bizarro is going on and fighting the military force, and they are to go on and use the yellow sun against him, which is kind of funny for how we kind of end this episode in kind of the same mirrored way, so to speak. So Bizarro goes and fights off the military, and then all of a sudden is to fight off Lana, who I guess in the Bizarro world is their technical savior, who Lana is going on, and I guess maybe she is to be infused with, of course, Clark's mother, who of course is, or Superman's mother, who of course is Laura. So I'm assuming what probably happened on that world is maybe a number of people were to all get infused with the Kryptonian ancestors to go and try to take Superman down. And so I guess something stuck with Lana, so that way she's still being probably Laura from Krypton or the Bizarro Krypton equivalent. So I'm like, okay, that's interesting. So we have, of course, Bizarro, who is to put that kind of goofy astronaut like equipment on, and he, of course, is to have this inhaler that is not taking in XK, but is taking normal kryptonite. So, like in the Bizarro world, we of course have like kryptonite, I guess, possibly uh, giving like powers to people. Is that possible? Maybe just for Bizarro and nobody else. That just seems like a weird thing. So we have Bizarro, who is to, of course, fly off to be able to make it to the mines, to have been stuck in the mines, and because he was kind of buried under XK. So we have Clark talking to Bizarro, and we have Bizarro that is telling Clark, with Lana, Clark's mother, present. Bizarro is telling Clark that he needs to go on and kill Allie. And Clark is like, no, I won't kill her. Like, she's not like a legitimate threat. But Bizarro's like, well, but you, and I'm paraphrasing here. Like, Bizarro's like, well, you don't get how, like, she may go on and, like, basically, uh, go on and create the, like, the end of the world. She might be unstoppable, and like you have to stop her before she goes on and is to sync herself with her mirrored version or her Bizarro version of herself, because it's only a matter of time. So, because we of course have Bizarro, who in his world he is to find Allie and he is to grab the necklace from her, and he is to go on and make his way to this other world to try and stop Allie from this other mirrored world. So after Clark is kind of done talking with Bizarro, and Clark is to make his way back, of course, to his home, we find out that I guess Jonathan is starting for the football team, and I'm like, oh, that's great. He had to go on and he had to juice up so he can go, he can start, because I guess the coach saw nothing in him, but like, well, like he had to like. You know what's kind of weird? Wouldn't a coach have like noticed that all of a sudden this guy is getting scaringly good? All of a sudden, like this is kind of coming out of nowhere, like he's getting deadly accurate or something. Because we of course have the coach I guess, blowing the whistle on some other kid before, because the previous guy was to be kicked off the football team. And later on, Jordan is to find out that I guess that other quarterback was also using XK, or that other player was also using XK, and he had gotten caught. And so it's like, So Jordan is going on and telling Jonathan, it's like, well, hey, does are you starting to get like freeze breath in? Like, uh, is your uh, is your breath feeling all like wintry or whatever goofy thing that Jordan says? And Jonathan's like, what are you talking about? And so Jordan is to kind of blow this ice onto this lamp, and I think Jordan just desperately just doesn't want to be alone in this, and he's wanting Jonathan to have powers too, and like so that way they can bond again. Because it seems like it's been a while since they've really bonded, because Jordan has powers and Jonathan doesn't. So all of a sudden, Jordan is to find this inhaler in Jonathan's room, and Jordan's like, "What's this?" And Jonathan's like, "Well, that's Candace's. I don't know what that is." Like, yeah, right. Sure, you juicer. Yes, you're Roid Ranger. You. So, so they head on down, and Jordan doesn't think anything of it until hearing this story later on. So they're kind of getting ready to head out, and everybody go about their business. And so Clark, of course, is to be getting this text from Lana. And so Lana, of course, is still dealing with Kyle and contemplating what she's going to do. She's humming and hawing. And so we have both Sarah and we have both Sophie. Let's go with Sophie. Yeah, luckily for me, right? So I don't know how I pulled that name out of my batukas. So we have Sophie and Sarah that are kind of talking about things, and because Sarah's still like she had gotten a bunch of gifts from her quinceanera, and so she wants to return all the gifts. And Lana's like, hey, like people spent a lot of time and a lot of effort like putting those gifts together. So like if anything you should go on and thank all of them for putting all that time and all that effort. And Sarah's like, well, yeah, but like every time she sees those gifts, she just thinks about her father's betrayal, and that's all that she really sees. And so we of course have Sophie that's asking like her mother. It's like, well, is Daddy ever gonna come home? And Lana's like, I don't know. And all of a sudden, she just Lana breaks down, and Sophie or Sarah's like comforting her. She's just bawling her eyes out as she's kind of getting this message from Kent that's giving us so much hope about this kind of weird, goofy, like thing that could possibly at some point go on between. I'm gonna keep pushing this until it happens. The whole Lana and Clark angle, where all of a sudden it's gonna like something's gonna happen. They keep going that direction, and I'm just like, how is this all gonna play out? Because I weirdly want it to. I just want it to, selfishly for this story. So, so we of course everybody is to go on to class, and so uh, Jordan is going on and talking to Sarah, and like we also have it toward Jordan and Jonathan are just like, man, are they really getting to the point of them just like hating one another? And it just seems that way. But anyways, so Jordan is to talk with Sarah, and we of course have to bring up, it's like, well, hey, like, that party was fun until like the one point when your father betrayed you. Sarah's like, really? You have to bring that up? And so Sarah goes on. It's like, well, yeah, like it just kind of sucks that my like dad kind of walked down on my mom, or like betrayed my mom with some bartender. As one guy's kind of listening in, and Sarah's like, what? Like, stop looking at us. Stop looking at us, Swan. Move away. You no longer sit there. Anyways, so after like, let's move on. So Sam is to go and try to mend fences with both Lucy and both Lois. And so Sam decides to bring on in Lucy, to just have both Lucy and Lois just kind of talk things out. But like, we just have Sam who's just like, hey, like, let's not like bicker, like let's kind of forget about all that garbage, kind of sweep it under the rug for right now, and just be a family. Like, can we just be like a family, like, can we just, like, come on, like, I'm trying here, like I want us to be a family again, because that's what I need right now after my retirement. I just need family. Like, could you just give me that? And so we have Lucy and Lois playing buddy buddy and playing sisters. And when Jordan and John, so like Lucy is catching up. And when she goes and is to see both Jonathan and Jordan come home after school, like she starts talking about football stuff and talking about the O line and the D line and the every kind of line that there could be in football, special teams, kickoff, whatever, all that jazz. So it seems like things are back to normal. Yeah, because of course it seems that way. Or it seems maybe that these two could mend fences and everything could work out. No. I don't think so. Because eventually, when we get both Lois and we get both Lucy in the football game, it seems like they're still reminiscing about old times. It's like, yeah, I remember the time that we kind of stole that rum, and Dad had got really mad, and all this kind of. But then all of a sudden, it goes right back to Lucy and how dangerous how dangerous that Lucy doesn't realize that Allie is, and it just goes right back to that same old song and dance. That all of a sudden, like these two are just butting heads, and Lucy's like, well, like, tell Dad I'll call him or something like that, and she just leaves because she's a leaver. Yeah, we just had the same argument that we've had for like a billion years for these two. So, but before we get to that, we have Clark go to the funeral of the two twins that never really had a name, because they of course were to die. And so the two kids, uh that of course, like, where is Tag in all this? Like, he couldn't make it into this funeral because of his injuries. You know what, like, I probably, like, would say that it's like, well, of course they probably couldn't have Tag there because maybe he was busy, maybe there were scheduling conflicts. But I really just think that they're like just figuring out a way to possibly write Tag off anyways. So Kent and Anderson are going and seeing the woman of one of the kids that had died from the Bizarro moment before. And Clark also talked to Bizarro about the numerous deaths that he has caused, and like Bizarro like had to kill those people. Like, most of them, it was like it was either him or them, and he chose himself. Because especially the two kids, two kids that were wearing the Superman logo were trying to go and fight against Bizarro, and so he had to defend himself. But I think Dr. Faulkner, like, I think she just, like, we just needed to figure out a way to just kind of get rid of that character that really didn't have much in this show and she wasn't here for very long. Yeah, just as soon as we get somebody in that mine, just kill them off, sadly. Because we just don't need anybody manning that mine. Because whoever it will be is just going to get killed. So, and plus, I'm sure that that woman was going to have some thoughts about, like, using the X-Kryptonite against people, probably, if she was going to last that long. So, anyways, back into it. So Superman is talking to the mother of the one girl that had died, and she, like, they're kind of reminiscing, and the mother's like, well, yeah, like, she definitely wanted to like, be just like you, Superman. And like, Superman is telling this woman, it's like, well, yeah, she even saved my life once, so, like, hey, like, she was great. And all of a sudden Anderson just kind of walks in, and all of a sudden this mother kind of turns into the mother from Jaws, where she goes on and she's talking to Anderson, and Anderson is like promising her like a mother, or she's like, yeah, we'll get the guy who had took down your daughter, and I promised this and I promised that, and she's like, you know what, you've promised far too much. Slap. Slap, 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 slap. Slap. And so this woman just leaves, and then Clark or Superman is to turn around to Anderson and say, oh yeah, you know, Bizarro, I just have him locked away in the other Fortress of Solitude. And then Anderson is like, you couldn't have just said that to me and that woman. And so Superman is like, well, I wanted to tell you first because, like, we're growing trust. Like, you should trust me with some, like, I'm trusting you with this information. And like, if Superman would have told that woman and not Anderson right away, Anderson would have been ticked. So either way, this guy just would have been ticked. Anderson, I tell you, that guy, he would just be ticked either way. So, again, Superman is asking Anderson for the necklace. Hey, give me that necklace. And Anderson is like, no, like, what do you even know about this necklace? What do you even want with this necklace for? Like, and so every time there's a different reason that Superman needs this necklace. And so Anderson just doesn't want to give it up. So all of a sudden, we have it at one point where Superman is going to have to leave. And Anderson is going to one of his military officers to say, like, hey, like, where is he going off to? So Anderson is at his office, and so this officer is to tell him where he went. And so Anderson is just weirdly clutching at this necklace, this medallion. I'm like, oh my god, don't tell me he somehow figured out how to fuse with either his mirror itself, or he probably fused with Allison or Allie in that mirrored world, because I'm thinking something's going down here. Because all of a sudden we have Anderson with this, like, slick back hair, and I'm like, since when all of a sudden does Anderson have this, like, slick back hair? Like, what the is going on? A little tiny bit observant here. Because we have it all the time where he has it kind of combed forward. Now it's slicked back weirdly. And he's saying, like, well, this is, like, only what I could do here. And so I'm still thinking about that cat. Weirdly enough. So, but we have Superman that goes off, and we, of course, have him, like, see this big, massive avalanche. and all this town is like trying to evacuate from the city, and they're like, "Oh my God, this avalanche is coming! It's gonna crush our town, and heaven forbid we can do anything about it." So all of a sudden, Superman uses his ice breath, and then goes on and uses his heat vision, and then he goes on and turns around. And here's the one thing that I really like about this show, and I still feel like this is something that they did in season 1, but let's forgive him for this. Superman goes on and is to turn around and is, of course, to speak the native language of these people. And I really respected that. I'm like, that's the thing that I really love about this show is we have a Superman that goes on and is to know every single language on Earth, so that way he can like respect the people and just like, hey, like I'm gonna say your language and hope that you understand it and whatever, and then I'm just gonna go on and fly off because I give no f's. Like, I saved your people. See you later. I got better things to do. So Superman changes back into Clark just in time for, of course, the boys to go off to their football game, and so we, of course, have it where, of course, Jonathan is within this powwow with Coach Grimes? Or Coach Gaines, my bad. Can't get them all. Coach Gaines is going on and doing this rousing speech to just be like, hey, let's just go get him, because this is the normal speech that any football coach will, like, hey, let's try to win. Still, it's really weird to see like the colors of this high school being like blue and gray or something, because Smallville was like red and gold, and it's kind of weird seeing now noticeably that this is like blue and gray. Kind of a crappy color system, but I guess they kind of figured it's like, well, hey, we gotta do something different from Smallville. We can't just go on and have it be red and gold. But you know what? I think if they probably had it where it was like red and blue, or like red and blue and yellow, or something like that, a color combination of that, maybe we could have gone on and had Superman say like, well, because like, didn't he get his super suit from his father? Because in other stories we had it to where Superman was to have his mother make his costume, right? So, and I think that still applies to this show. Man, we could have had it to where like Superman had the matching colors of his school, and that's why he got that color combination instead of now having the blue and gray. And like, we could probably change it at any moment to just say like, oh yeah, hey, like these are the actual colors of Smallville, and we're going back to tradition and whatever. But anyways, like, I would have thought like Superman's costume could have matched the school that he was at. I think that would have been like a cool like thing to do, but it is what it is with this story. So I'm sorry I wasted too much time for that. The one thing that I also forgot about is Lucy and Lois were talking about Chrissy and how she had gotten drugged to be forced to hear Allie out. And Lois used that as a tool against Lucy to just say, it's like, don't you think it's horrible that the only way that Allie is going to have people listen to her is if they drug her? Or him, or whoever the next person will be? So so no one will be willing to really hear Allie out without being drugged. And I'm kind of curious if Lucy had gotten some kind of drug within her system that was kind of more susceptible to be manipulated. And maybe she still has that kind of thing, possibly that she is taking or something like that without her knowing. And all of a sudden, maybe once she finally kicks this drug, all of a sudden she's going to go on and realize, oh, Lois, I was under the influence. Like, I'm sorry, Lois. Like, you know what? You're right the whole time, but, like, I just couldn't see it because, like, I was under the drug of manipulation. My bad, Lois. My bad. So, going back to Jonathan. So after that rousing "ooh yeah, let's go woohoo" speech, Clark kind of goes on as like, "Hey buddy," like Clark tells Jonathan, it's like, "Hey man, like it's your game, like you're starting," and Jonathan's like, "Well yeah, like." But I'm gonna go on and go to the bathroom, and Clark's just like, okay. And so as he leaves, Jonathan's like, yeah, I'm just gonna keep on juicing. Heaven forbid, like he makes it to the starting thing and then he stops there. Oh no, heaven forbid. So Jonathan goes on and throws another perfect game, and at the end of this whole, uh, at the end of this whole game, we have Jordan finding out about the whole like inhaler thing, and that someone is to go on and say that uh, this guy had tested positive for X kryptonite. So Jordan is to go right after the game to the locker room to confront Jonathan about like, hey, like I know that you're taking X kryptonite. That's why he was hiding it so badly. And Jonathan is just like, well, yeah, maybe I am. So what? And so all of a sudden we have Jonathan who's starting to have like his laser vision starting to kick in, or his heat vision starting to like kick in, and I'm just waiting for Jonathan to accidentally like hurt somebody with his power to finally force him to stop, because he technically can. Like it's not like Jordan where he can just kind of shut it off one day. Like he had to learn how to master that power. But you know, it would be really cool, but it probably won't happen, if after Jonathan is to stop taking XK, his powers then kick in, and then he's like, oh crap, like there might be some after effects of XK, and then it's like, no, like you just have powers now, like, oh crap. Um, but that probably won't happen. They're gonna probably keep going on with the whole XK thing, and then that's going to resolve, and then Jordan will be back to just be like, oh, woe is me. Because that's technically what he's doing now. He's kind of guilt tripping Jordan. Then he's like, yeah, like, you know what? Like, everybody was so, like, amazed at me. And, but hey, like, it sucks knowing that that I'm, like, using this drug to get an advantage. And it really sucks, Jordan. It really does. And so Jordan's like, so I'm supposed to, like, cry for you? I'm supposed to feel bad for you that you're, because like technically like Jordan went on and played football, but then he like decided to stop doing it. But he wanted to kind of put some bullies into their place, and then he just wanted to just kind of to to be done with that. And so Jonathan, of course, is to only be doing this whole XK thing just so that way he could be better than someone else, just so he could get playing time. That's not the same thing. Like that's not the right kind of way about going about things. And it'll probably come down to the point where Jonathan is probably going to get tagged for this. He's probably going to get found out about this. It's only a matter of time. And probably Jordan probably won't know when to stop. So it is with that story. So We, of course, during the football game, Jonathan is talking to Clark, and Clark, of course, is to mention that he has to go. There's a problem for him to have to go ahead and leave and try to take care of. And so Jonathan is to tell Coach Gaines that Clark is having stomach problems. So it's kind of funny because Coach Gaines is telling Clark, or is saying, like, man, that guy needs to get on a different diet. As we go on and we see freaking, like, Superman, like, shirtless in this episode, and how he's just, like, you're seeing his ribs, his abs, freaking everything. Like, yeah. We really need to get a hold of that diet. Yeah, that Superman, like, man, does he really need to get, like, in better shape? Yeah, just throw that in our faces, everyone's faces. So, and it's great how hard this guy is to, of course, worked out to do this show because, of course, like it's like fitting all that in, especially with technically being a lead or yeah, kind of a lead for this show, 16-hour days and whatever. So we go on and so Clark is to make it back to Anderson to find himself in a room that is filled with the red sun. And we had it to where Bizarro is saying to Clark when he was to speak to him that Bizarro realizes that he, like, in this world, is not going to be able to be at his A game, and maybe Superman should go on and kind of lead the way because Superman will be a lot more powerful than Bizarro was, or Bizarro is right now. So we now go on and have, of course, Superman who goes in this room, and Anderson is to douse on the red sun gaze that is to start to weaken Superman. And so now Anderson goes on and is to inject Superman with kryptonite because he can no longer trust him. And it seems like his superiors are kind of breathing down his neck, saying that that X kryptonite is starting to get drug dealed out, and this Bizarro Superman is still on the rampage, and that the trust between Anderson and Superman is drastically shaken to where, like, Sam and Superman's partnership from before was like solid as a rock, where we turn around and have this new guy that comes into town and he just, like, he is just not buddy with Superman for some odd reason. So we see here where Superman is getting catered off in this this kind of hospital, or this kind of ambulance kind of vehicle where he's getting put off to be put into a cell right next to Tal-Rho. And so they're kind of hoping that maybe if Superman is going to be spending some time in this cell, that'll probably make Superman realize that he should go on and release Bizarro's location so they can go and obtain Bizarro and take him down. Here's my thing. I'm just kind of waiting for a bunch of crap to just go horribly awry, and then them desperately need Superman, and him just be like, well, no. Like, you know what? Like, you imprisoned me. Why should I go and help you? Like, I'm just kind of waiting for that. Where, like, how are they going to force Superman to now have to go on and help them or save them or whatever? Because, like, his trust with humanity because of this one guy, Anderson, is now shaken. But I'm also thinking that Laura is going to release Bizarro for Bizarro to go on and help Superman. Because I'm thinking that's exactly what's going to happen for this story. I'm also kind of wondering if Superman might go on and might take his brother and put his brother in that same cell like Bizarro, and maybe just have kind of both of them in that same kind of fortress. Because you know what? Like, I'm thinking that at some point we could probably have Anderson or anybody with any kind of skill of sorts be able to possibly control Tal-Rho and force him to turn uh, on everybody in the world and kind of use, because we have like Tal-Rho, who's kind of like a bargaining chip, of course, for like somebody can control him at some point, somebody can brainwash him, somebody can wipe his brain at some point, because that might be a way around things. To maybe brainwash Tal-Rho or kind of use something to his benefit or something like that. But I don't know. We're kind of like, I want to kind of see where this story heads, because this episode was a lot better than some others. So, but yeah, we have like Jonathan and Jordan kind of talking it out about the whole ex kryptonite thing, and Jordan is just kind of getting really ticked off at Jonathan, and because Jonathan is like, yeah, you should start boo-hoo crying for me. Yeah, like I knew I could win this game, and so like it was kind of a pointless victory. It's like, really? It was pointless? You're just trying to figure out some kind of maneuver, some kind of a way? Because I guess that's when you kind of get, uh, like, we have kind of Jonathan who's doing the stereotypical, like, addiction character, where we kind of have, like, weirdly in this season, we kind of have a lot of people that quite possibly are to have drug addictions or whatever in this season for whatever. Are they, is that some kind of weird goofy theme that they're kind of going with for this season? Because that's what it feels like to me. So with that said, I think I'm going to get the heck out of here so I can go on and get this uploaded, but also to try to minimize how long that this video is. So let me know in the comments below how you felt about this episode. There might have been something that I forgot about, something in there, or I didn't go into full detail, which I do apologize about, but otherwise, without a doubt, let me know how you felt about this episode, because I'm going to go out of my way to say goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody. Completely forgot about the Lana Kyle stuff, so we're going to be covering that. Completely forgot about it because, like, oh, like, shouldn't I? Yeah. So, Lana, Kyle, the one thing that I didn't really want to talk about in this episode. So, Lana, of course, was spending some time with Clark before Clark's football game, and Lana, of course, is just trying to figure it out whether or not she should stay with Kyle. And so Lana asks Clark, it's like, well, hey, like, if Lois would ever have cheated on you, like, would you stay with her? And Clark, of course, is like, well, like, it depends on the circumstances. It depends on, like how long it had been going on, blah 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 blah. So Lana eventually isn't really like finding an answer when she's kind of talking to Clark, and Lana realizes that Clark needs to go and leave for this football game, but Clark is saying like, "Hey, like I'm here for you all the time that you need, all the time in the world. I'm here." And but Lana is just like, "Well, go on, because I don't think that I'll be able to like come up with an answer right now." So Clark goes on, and so Lois decides, or Lois decides, Lana decides she wants to go on and talk to Tanya to kind of hear like every little bit of Tanya's side of things and try to like find out how this all started, how long was it ago that they had done this. And so Lana is to find out that Tanya was having an affair with Kyle 2 years ago. And she's like, oh, so it's not like something that was just now happening. And Tanya, I guess, was to love Kyle, but Kyle, I guess, didn't reciprocate that because Kyle was trying to leave Tanya to get his family back together. So I think that there is probably always just going to be some reasoning for Kyle to eventually want to give it the old college try to keep going on with Lana. So that eventually this was gonna like it was gonna get to the point where like Kyle was one way or another just kind of not being the best dad or not being the best husband or not being the some kind of something because he probably didn't really want to be with Lana because Lana was probably still uh, always like probably comparing Kyle to Clark probably every time they went out, every time um, they did anything, and so on and so forth, to the point where maybe we find out that Lana still possibly has feelings for Clark, spiraling out of control. Maybe that'll all be what it really is. So we have it where Lana is to go on and meet with Kyle at his job, at his firefighting job. So the first time that Lana was to, of course, seeing Kyle drive one of these cars was like the first time, like Kyle wanted to scoop Lana up because Lana was like the best girl in town, and so he wanted to showcase this to the world. Yada yada yada. So Lana is to finally go on and tell Kyle that you know what, like things are over between us. Like you can go on and pick up your stuff when I'm not there or the kids aren't there, and then you can just leave. And I'm kind of wondering if Kyle is probably going to do this grand gesture or stand his ground and just kind of like have like some way that he's going to try and win Lana over and it's going to weirdly work. And I'm like, man, what a waste of time all this was. Because I think there's going to be something in the near future where all of a sudden we're going to find out that, like, oh, like, Lana and Kyle are perfectly back together, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, so with that said, like, that's all that I want to say about this one. There were some times of which, when we got to this relationship, where I was like, come on, let's get to it. Let's get to the, like, yes or no, because I was so concerned that they were going to kind of cliffhanger this and not exactly say like yes or no about Lana having this relationship. And so I was thinking like what crappy way to like because I know a number of shows would go on and kind of leave this kind of like well I'm not sure, but luckily we got to the final finish of Lana saying like yeah we're breaking up. So with that said, I'm gonna get out of here. Bye, buddy. Bye, buddy.